Since ancient times, the land of Mexico has yielded many kinds of wealth. The Aztecs prized turquoise and jade above all other minerals found in the earth. They gave much less importance to gold and silver, and couldn't understand why the Spanish conquistadors were so eager for these shiny metals. Cortés and his men found little gold in Mexico, but a few years after the conquest, rich veins of silver were discovered in the mountains of the Mesa Central. Within 150 years, the mines of Mexico had doubled the world's supply of silver and had made Spain one of the richest nations in Europe. Colonial boom towns like Zacatecas, Taxco, and Guanajuato sprang up on the hills around the silver mines. Spanish noblemen and adventurers made fortunes almost overnight and lavished their wealth on homes, gardens, and some of the world's most ornate churches. But not all of the legacy of silver was so beautiful. To the Indians who worked as forced laborers in the mines, silver meant exploitation, misery, and sometimes death. Today, after more than 4 centuries of mining, Mexico still produces nearly 1/5 of the world's annual supply of silver. And skilled Mexican artisans continue to shape gold and silver into ancient designs. But the mineral wealth of Mexico's rugged terrain includes much more than gold and silver. In the northern state of Nuevo León lie rich fields of coal, iron ore, and limestone. These minerals supply the mills of Monterrey, Mexico's 3rd largest city, with the raw materials for manufacturing steel. Throughout Mexico, the proud stamp Hecho en Mexico, made in Mexico, can be found on countless manufactured goods, including heavy machinery, cars, buses, tractors, and various consumer items. Puebla and Guadalajara also have experienced enormous industrial growth, but it is Mexico City where 50% of the country's industry is concentrated. While heavy industry has played an important part in the growth of Mexican cities, other types of manufacturing have been equally important, such as food processing and textile production. Raw materials for the textile industry include natural fibers like cotton and wool, which Mexico produces in abundance. The country also manufactures a multitude of synthetic fibers. These are derived from yet another natural resource, petroleum. For decades, wells along the Gulf Coast have tapped what were once thought to be modest oil reserves. But in the 1970s, Mexican engineers and geologists found evidence of vast new reserves in southern Mexico's jungles and beneath the shining surface of the Gulf of Mexico. Perhaps as much as 1/3 of the world's oil reserves lies off the coasts of Veracruz, Tabasco, and Chiapas. The discovery of these vast reserves has raised the prospect of Mexico's becoming a major exporter in the profitable oil market. But the nation is in no hurry to dispose of its oil. Much of Mexico's current production is used within the country, and the untapped reserves can guarantee the nation's energy supply for decades to come. The petrochemical industry, which converts petroleum into industrial chemicals and products such as plastics, has become one of the nation's fastest-growing businesses. However, despite widespread industrialization and the prospect of enormous oil-related wealth, Mexico, in recent years, has encountered serious economic problems along with their social consequences. Industrial growth, though impressive, has not been able to keep pace with the nation's rising population. An estimated 40% of the nation's workforce is either unemployed or underemployed. Many young people who are unable to find good-paying jobs must do work that does not utilize all their skills. Frustrated college students often feel that they are training for jobs that do not exist, and political violence has sometimes erupted on university campuses. The worldwide economic recession of the mid-1970s made the situation worse. Like many other countries, Mexico experienced severe inflation, which drove up the prices of both goods and services. Many poor and middle-class Mexican families found it harder to afford basic necessities, as well as the many desirable consumer items produced by Mexican industry. In light of these economic and social problems, the question of how best to use the nation's oil wealth has become a subject of controversy. Some Mexicans are concerned that a few wealthy individuals and corporations may benefit from the new oil fields, as others did from the silver mines. while the majority of poor and middle-class Mexicans may gain little from this new exploitation of the land. Some say that instead of pouring billions of pesos into petrochemical industries, which require expensive machinery but employ relatively few workers, the government should encourage more labor-oriented projects that create large numbers of jobs, such as road construction and public works. If oil profits can be used to develop such projects, unemployment may be reduced significantly, and the benefits of the oil boom may reach a greater percentage of the nation's people. But not all of Mexico's most valuable resources lie beneath the earth. The country's predominantly sunny climate is a key factor in another industry, one that has become increasingly important in recent years: tourism. During the winter months, when Arctic cold sweeps down over much of North America, the plateaus and lowlands of Mexico are warmed by gentle sea breezes. This is the season that many people consider Mexico's most beautiful. Under the brilliant blue sky, the warm earth tones of the land's architecture are reflected in the vibrant colors which so often adorn Mexican handicrafts. But climate is not Mexico's only attraction. The remains of more than 2,000 years of human civilization combine with the dynamism of a vital modern culture to attract visitors from all over the world. In recent years, more than 2 million tourists have visited Mexico annually, and they have spent the equivalent of $1 billion US. Directly or indirectly, these tourists help provide a living for thousands of Mexicans, not only the managers and staffs of hotels and resorts, but also musicians and entertainers, artists and craftsmen, guides and transport workers. The business of leisure is unquestionably one of Mexico's leading industries. Significantly, it is an industry without smokestacks, and one which does not depend upon the removal of any limited resource from the earth. Government planners feel that increased tourism can bring still more wealth to Mexico, particularly to regions that may not be suited to other kinds of development. The Yucatan Peninsula, for example, has limited potential for agriculture or heavy industry, but it does have a warm and sunny climate, as well as an extraordinary wealth of monuments such as the great ceremonial complex at Chichen Itza. Though many of the region's rural people lack specialized industrial skills, they can readily be trained for many jobs related to tourism, serving as guides, for example. Because of the unique needs and special potential of the Yucatan region, the Mexican government has encouraged the development of several major resort complexes, where futuristic hotels rise along the ocean front like modern descendants of their ancient Mayan ancestors. The planning of a resort like Cancun requires the building of airfields, roads, and other facilities that can also serve the permanent residents of the area. Through such resort developments, the Mexican government hopes to stimulate the economy of the entire Yucatan region. Today, Mexico's challenge is to find a balanced use of its resources, to weigh the value of a magnificent and historic landscape with the wealth that lies beneath the landscape, so that all the nation's people may benefit equally.